me, mindfulness is more about relationship. And it's not relationship with, I don't know, people that surrounding you, but about the relationship with yourself.
Management is not about writing the code. It's about building communication and relationship and doing the right thing.
We're all emotional beings. It is hard to switch off the fight or flight. It takes practice and takes knowing yourself to be able to sort of not give the first emotion out there. So welcome to Centric Talks podcast, and today we're going to be discussing the topic of mindfulness in project management. I'm Karolina, your host today. I'm a senior project manager here at Centric, and I'm thanking all of you for joining us for this discussion. So before we dive in, I have a couple of professionals next to me, and I want to just do a quick round of introductions. So first of all, I got Diana Borovik, and she's a project manager with 5 years of experience in different fields, such as postal services, public institutions, and various startups, such as fintech and e-commerce. Diana created, managed, and deployed business solutions for mitigating compliance risks, improving internal processes, and clients' experiences. Next up is Rokas Samuolis. He's a professional in project management field with over 15 years of experience in diverse industries and cultures, including banking, civil engineering, energy, public and private sectors, health and pharma. And Rokas actually has a lot of different certifications, so carries a diverse stack of those, and has a holistic approach in achieving project goals. And last but definitely not least, we got Anna Strinadko, and she's a certified Scrum Master at OAG Aviation Worldwide. She's currently an Agile delivery manager managing her own teams, and her passion is to build happy teams and deliver value. Okay, so thanks for joining me. Welcome. Great. So today we're focusing on an aspect of project management that is both crucial and transformative, which is mindful leadership. Mindful leadership goes beyond just managing tasks and deadlines. It's about presence, about intention, about deep awareness of both yourself and your team. So what exactly is mindful leadership? At its core, it's a practice of bringing mindfulness into your leadership style. Mindfulness is an act of being fully present at the moment, aware of your thoughts, emotions, surroundings, without judgment. When applied to leadership, this means being truly attentive to your team's needs, staying calm and focused in the face of challenges, and making decisions that are thoughtful and deliberate. So in today's discussion, we're going to explore how we can incorporate mindfulness in our leadership styles to create more positive and effective team environments. And I'm looking at you for your experiences, starting from early days when mindfulness as a word came into your lives, and how do you apply that in your day-to-day management of your teams? How does it work? Maybe it doesn't work, your failures, your successes, anything like that. And let's see how the world of project management is actually developing, because it is changing. So my definition of mindful leadership is that something that's heard close to what you believe it is, or not. And maybe Rokas.
Thanks for the introduction and the definition. In my experience, the standalone word of mindfulness and attached this definition to something else, mindful leadership, mindful communication, mindful something else, you can attach it to almost anything. But that started in the last few years, let's say, and it was floating around. But only recently it became distilled and purified to a single term that we can all agree on. But I would say that, at least in my experience, it's rather new. And maybe it's a combination of all the things that I mentioned before: communication, being present, being in the moment. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or a manager or a CEO. Having empathy, in other terms, and the features that managers need to have. I'm quite happy to explore this and hear it from you.
Okay, great. Diana, your experiences with mindfulness, and especially the definition of it, does that relate to
Okay, so actually about the mindfulness, I heard probably 5 years ago or 6 years ago during the Change Conference for Women. There were a lot of speakers talking about emotional well-being, about your mental well-being, and it was interesting that mindfulness about being present here, but for me, mindfulness is more about relationship. And it's not relationship with, I don't know, people that surrounding you, but about the relationship with yourself. How you can understand what do you need or what do you think. So actually, when you're thinking about your personal relationship with yourself, when you have this relationship with yourself, then it's way easier to talk with your team, your colleague, or your partner. So for me, mindfulness is a relationship.
Okay. Same question, Anna. Oh, sorry.
Can I add on top
Yeah,
of it?
of course.
I love the way you said that it's a relationship item, right? It probably only works or does not work in relationships. If you're the only one there, doing the job on your own, in your own time, do you need mindfulness? Question.
Yes, but because you need to be focused on what
Yeah, you
you're
need to
doing.
be focused, right? And the term present in the moment and focused, are we just replacing a word for a word? If that's the case, do we need that? If mindfulness is only being there in the moment, so let's just call it being there in the moment.
I think it's limitation of the world, really, because mindfulness is not just being present in the moment. It's a combination of various practices, including something from emotional intelligence, including something from awareness and being focused, keeping the focus. But it's, again, some practices about knowing who you are and what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. Because to me, mindfulness turned into a conversation, who am I as a manager and how can I be a good manager, because I want to be one. And you start the journey, and then everything like dominoes, it just falls into place. When you learn something about yourself, when you improve something about yourself, when you pay attention to your behavior patterns, you become conscious about the patterns of behavior. How do I react when my team members come to me and says, you know, we missed the deadline? Do you start to shout? Do you start to help him elaborate on the situation? Do you support him? What you be the behavior pattern? And when you know that, you can adjust it. And this is the beginning of servant leadership in a way. And same falls into the pretty standard aviation metaphor, like help yourself first and then help your partner, help someone who's near you. And that's about being a good manager. You help yourself first, because if you're stable, if you're present, if you pay enough attention to people and details, if you support them, you basically raises the chances of success for your project, just because you're there for the people. And nowadays, management is not about writing the code. It's about building communication and relationship and doing the right thing. It's easy to code anything, but it's really hard to build something valuable. And that's about mindfulness as well.
So I really like what Anna just alluded to, because I got a question that actually fits into all of this very nicely. So what specific mindfulness techniques do you actually use to maintain your focus and composure as a leader?
Various one. It depends on the sector where you're most interested in. At some point in time, it was time management, really, because I wanted to be everywhere at the same time and being in a context, and I was afraid of delegating stuff. So when you do that, you automatically grow your to-do list to enormous size. So this is how all the Eisenhower metrics, Pomodoro technique came up. I started to practice them. It became a behavior, a routine. Wasn't the case. Then it was something about journaling at some point in time as well. It's from awareness probably, but again, it helps you to shift and reflect of what the situation was and how you acted in it. What would you do different? Yeah. And at some point in time, I started to use it in my one-to-ones with my direct reports and with my manager as well, because this is the feedback loop that you really need to improve yourself.
Of course. Okay.
I think these two are just the most recent ones.
Yeah. So on to you, Diana. Because I know that mindfulness as a definition, as a word, right? It's pretty new, and as you said yourself, that for you it's been the last maybe 5 years or so, been hearing about it. But we as project managers, we usually use these techniques quite unconsciously because we got to manage ourselves. So what's your experience?
I would say again about the relationship because I'm trying to build most of them not only with my team but as other stakeholders from the company, or I don't know, from the organizations where you're working. They are also part of stakeholders. So actually, when you have like a connection with the person, and the person not only from the I don't know personal professional experience, but also from personal things, and you understand what they value and so on, you can find common things and have like an easier conversation and understand their needs. And when you understand their needs, in my opinion, you can find the angles to talk with them and be present for them here. So stakeholders management, I believe, is the main part in my life in that case.
Well, I think it's a big thing for any project manager to manage their stakeholders, right? And we know that there are not just the clients, but also your own team that you work with. So, Rokas, what's your perspective on that? Do you use any mindfulness practices, as from your experience, which you have quite a lot?
Yeah, I'll share a few conversations that I had with people from my network. When asked what do they know about mindfulness, how do they use it, some opinions were that this is nothing new. We automatically do it. This is part of just being good, right? Another thought is that mindfulness probably mostly comes up not when the times are good and everything goes well, but when something really bad happens, when something or someone really messed up, then mindfulness comes up. I noticed also in Lithuania, it's very self-explanatory when you explain anything in terms of basketball. For example,
Yeah.
last 10 seconds, your key player should have made the shot, instead lost the ball. The whole arena is, what have you done, you idiot? There's a timeout, the player comes to the coach. Okay, what will the coach say to the player, right? Because the ball is theirs, there's still a chance to win. But what will the coach say? Will it be, what have you done? You sit down, you sit down, or do whatever is possible.
Be a goldfish. For everyone who watched Ted Lasso, it should be a reference. If you haven't, please do.
Oh, what?
It's a TV series called Ted Lasso. It's about a football coach that comes
Ted
from
Lasso.
America to UK to train football team. And this is how he reacted in the same situation you described. Be a goldfish, because goldfish memory keeps only 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Forget and move on.
Maybe in this example, for leaders, they should be mindful, right, on what is the end goal, and how do we get there? Do we get there by this method, or do we get there by that method? And more likely, not overreacting, not allowing emotions overspill is a better method.
Pain.
Yeah.
Emotions control.
No,
And
absolutely.
usually, I think people are more likely to make decisions ran by emotions if the time is due, right? But that's not necessarily the best way, right? But
We're humans.
Yeah, we're all emotional beings, and it is hard to switch off that flight response, right? Fight or flight, which we all have, and we're wired to it, and it takes practice and takes knowing yourself to be able to sort of not give the first emotion out there, and especially in times where projects are not going very well. There's a problem, there's an issue, someone's panicking, and you got to maintain yourself. And my next question is actually about some examples. So I would like to hear an example where you through the mindfulness practices as a leader, you've helped your team go through a challenging period. You help them get back up on their feet, not concentrate too much on the failure as an example, come out of it. I know that, Anna, you have a pretty good example.
I know what you're talking about.
Of what you did. But we're going to come back to you. Diana, do you have anything you want to share to how you support your team when there's difficult situations and difficult moments?
Probably the most difficult situations are in a few, I don't know, situations. The first one, when you have a new joiner and they're really motivated and they really think that, okay, I'm gonna beat everything, I will do the best, I will write the best code from the very first minute. And then they get like a first task or first sprint and they see that the result is not as it is expected from his or her personally. And then it's like emotions and the motivation is trying to go down. And it's the second or third week of you working in the new company. And I met this person and we were talking like, okay, I realized that you are a bit upset about what's gone, that you didn't manage anything, some part of this task and so on. And I was asking why you had like really strong ambitions for yourself, because you know that you are the new joiner and you don't know the organization, the code, or etc. And he said that in his previous company, it was natural to be like a really good worker from the very first minute. And I said that in our company and in my team also, it's a bit different because we realized that you are the new person and you need to learn a lot. And our main goal during the few weeks is to get to know each other better and get to know your environment where you're working. And when you know this stuff, then you can go on to your professional things. So talking about mindfulness in that situation, you are trying to be calm and positive and say to your team member that, hey, it's everything okay to have like a failure that is coming from your mind, not from my expectations. And you just need to step back and hear my words from the, let's say, previous conversations or when we had like an interview. That is a very normal thing that you are not still very smart or very, I don't know, proactive delivery. So that's one thing that's coming to my mind.
Yeah, just to add on top of it, a pretty useful practice that I first saw at OEG as a company is part of the onboarding is when you need to schedule a calls with various people across the organization just to meet and greet, just to understand what are their roles and where you will be that. And that's very powerful, really powerful tool because you build a relationship, you expand your understanding. It's part of the onboarding, you can't skip it. But that breaks the ice and you feel like you're already a part of something because by nature people are very welcoming and open about sharing and you belong, and that's how it improves. So one of the practice include that.
And so I've heard that some companies use it as part of not onboarding, as part of the interview process.
We had multiple stage interview, but you probably
So before you're
during
accepted,
the interview,
before you get your offer, you have a dinner with.
Oh yeah, I had the same. I was invited to a dinner party to see the office, to talk to people, but it's slightly different. You usually talk on a personal level, like what kind of people you are, what do you value, like something about that. But then you in the same work environment and you say, okay, I joined as an agile delivery manager. You're head of products. What are your expectations for my role? How can I help you? What do you do? What kind of questions I can ask you? And that's how you build this and expand their understanding. And it's equal to almost everyone who joins, developer, software engineer, QA test, whatever it is. Everyone is in the same room and they bond with each other because you're at the very end.
Connection,
Exactly,
relationship,
and
then
relationships.
going forward.
And this is really what supports the relationship because, as you mentioned, the relationship is what matters at the very end.
Okay. Rokas, do you have anything to share from your experience in terms of helping?
Maybe a quick example. We had a project where nothing works. Anywhere you look, something is just falling apart. Delays, management decisions not made, such as in the I noticed that already there's coming this upcoming this blame game between the teams. So it's very important that to be mindful and step outside of emotions here, and present the facts and communicate not by emotions, not over, not even over coffee, or informally. Communicate very formally. Communicate with facts, right? What has this costed us so far? If it's a decision to be made and it has been delayed for a month, delaying a single day costs us this much per day. What do you do? So it was quite successful in that case, and helped the team, because not only myself to move the project forward, but also the team, because they knew that this blame game is not about them, right? And they can stay out of it.
Yeah, well, that's usually what we do as project managers. We try to safeguard our teams and their emotional well-being by taking on the challenging conversations. And I know that they do appreciate being upfront and honest in terms of why this is important and why are we getting this heat, because they get some perspective in terms of why are we doing this, and they get reminded of what the goal is and why we're trying to achieve it. Thanks for sharing that. Anna, we're coming to your story, and
Cool.
yeah, I'm
I actually
gonna
have
leave
two.
it to you. I assume bear the
Okay.
second one. Okay.
Well, we'll start with the safe one.
All right, let's go.
Probably the majority of project managers will know about the tool, but when it's a new team and people need to get to know each other, I really love the practice that is called Manual of Me. It's when you can define the template, you can use the template from internet, but you basically fill the form that explains some of your behaviors and your preferences. Like, I don't like to have calls before 11 a.m. I'm not at my best in the morning. And you put this information in there, like, in a conflict, I'm very emotional. So when you raise your voice, I will fight back. You need to be mindful about that. And instead of a retro session, or just it could be a separate call, I encourage everyone in the team to prepare it in advance and then share with each other. And that, first of all, breaks the ice, and it helps to build relationship and understand each other, how we act. Because maybe no one is the morning person, and we need to put the first daily sync for 11:30. And if you will do it at 9 a.m., everyone will suffer. And this is like mindfulness stuff. So that actually helps a lot to build initial collaboration and kick off the project. But the one that you referred to is on a different way of the spectrum. And I love to share the story because it's how you can be creative in a complicated environment. It's easy to start something, but we need to be cautious about the ending of the project. And it's equally, to me, important to properly start it and properly end it. And I was in a situation where, for my team, it was very hard to let go. We've worked together for almost a year, and it was MVP, new market niche, very, very new startup-ish feeling. Everyone was so invested in it. We built a bond. We used all the possible Scrum Mastery, facilitation activities, so it would really become the team. And when we launched the product, after a couple of months, we realized that it's a failure. The product didn't find the right customers, didn't find the niche. So we need to wrap up. It doesn't work out. And it's kind of normal because 70% of products are unsuccessful. But for the team, it was very hard to let it go because they put so much effort in, because they loved each other so much. And I knew that we will be reassigned to a different project because it was a service company. So I had to invent something, and I came up with a practice I called the funeral. So we actually created a project charter. We buried its ashes. We said the final words to it. We went to a bar. We kept talking about it. It was like a proper funeral, American style in a way. And that's about going through the loss and going through the changes and saying final thank you and goodbyes And that's about being present too. You need to know how to kick things off, and you need to know how to end the stuff. And sometimes funeral is not a bad thing, even if your project failed.
Yeah, I found that to be a very positive way of closing the chapter and moving on, which also sort of talks a little bit about being present and being here and being today, not worrying about what's coming next tomorrow, appreciating all the experience that you got from the work that you've been doing together as a team, and that's it, and sort of moving on after
Yeah,
that.
being grateful for the experience at the very end.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting experience. And I'm hoping that anyone that's listening, then that's also the way they see it. So
If we will see more and more improvised toms, I will feel responsibility for it.
imagine if there's a trend now,
Oh
and
yeah.
everyone starts doing that for every failed
Maybe
project.
someone will use a voodoo doll.
Ooh, okay.
Be mindful about using voodoo dolls.
I wouldn't.
You might just call something on yourself. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about obviously practicing this in your work environment and passing that knowledge of mindfulness, right? So starting from yourself, talking to your team members. Do you actually actively promote mindfulness practices to your team? Or this is still something you're sort of doing on a more personal level and hoping that people learn from example? And I guess Rokas, probably the first one on the table.
Well, everyone is ultimately responsible for their own personal development. Don't never think it's someone else's responsibility or accountability. It is your own. So that's and I apply it for myself very rigorously. So I do my own research usually, but that's about me. And if there's a correction or a lesson to be learned during a meeting, after a meeting, it's the best time to learn it right now. Right, something happened just now. Right about now, let's discuss what happened. What could have been a better way to handling it.
Okay, Anna.
I do use it not only on a personal level because I have direct reports for 6 years now, and that falls into individual level, of course. But the one thing that most important for me is to get the permission of doing that. So I start with offering, and it's okay to say no. And this is the ground rule that I try to set with everyone I work with. I can offer any help for you, but it's okay to say no. And with people who say yes, we do some practice. They mostly fall to the coaching area, where I might share some materials and we can play some situations and practice and do things. Sometimes I share my own experience, like with time management, what helped me, would you try this? Sometimes it's like repetition of feedback. I'm hesitant to provide the feedback. Can you talk to me? Can we replicate the situation so I would feel more comfortable? And it falls into that shoulders. But of course it's a work in progress, and it takes time to build trust in any team. But I hope that at some point in time I will say that, yes, we trust each other that much. So when they need help, they will come to me. But I'm open for a different percentage. Offer help when it's requested. That's
For
the most important.
steady growth
It's a steady
on
growth.
that
and
side.
Yeah, and I can totally relate that even if you will create a personal development plan, a brilliant one, it's still not your responsibility to act. You can only ask and offer, but it's still another person's responsibility to act towards that. And that's part of the journey, and you need to, as a manager, you need to explain that and set the rules.
Yeah.
Very, very straightforward.
So Diana, what's your experience on that?
I just was listening Anna's ideas and experience, and I wanted like add +1 like in Slack. Yeah, totally agree with what was said. Because I really relate what you are talking about this personal development from the person's perspective, or when you see that probably there can be area to be developed, and you are talking whether it's important or whether you want to hear my opinion, or maybe how can I help you there. But it's not like intentionally, hey, you need to learn this or that. So I totally agree with what you said.
So we talked about, obviously, failures in projects. Projects are usually high stress environments. Sometimes they're not, but most of the time there are. So when you're trying to lead mindfully, right, and trying to lead your team and trying not to be too emotional, stay grounded, understand what's going on, deal with those emotions before we respond, what obstacles do you personally face when trying to hold yourself to that mindfulness bit? How do you keep yourself centered in the moment where you just want to react?
It's easier for others. For some people, it's easy. For others, it's hard, right? I think it's a personal feature to some degree. How neurotic are you? What's the term?
Yeah, okay.
What's your emotional intelligence level? Like what's your nature?
Yeah. And I was thinking about areas where we, as people, as a nation, are not mindful, or we're just doing something while counting clouds, right? I found a very good, I think, area, and that is driving and traffic, city traffic. Have you ever seen a person driving with a car that is not starting when the green light is like on, like for 5 seconds, 10? What do? Well, you have many options what to do, right? But if you don't do one of the options, some other person will do that option, right? So that happens. Have you ever seen a driver that's second or third in the line? The car 1 and 2 already went, but the space is just so big for the third. A person which is counting clouds, right? Traffic or traffic jam can form. I think I don't have a scientific confirmation for this. In 2 ways. There's either a big crash, big event. In project management, that could be a fatal error somewhere, right? Or little by little, drivers are not mindful enough to keep up with opportunities to go, opportunities to stop, not aware of other drivers' intentions, etc., and to keep the traffic flowing. And little by little, these problems stack up, and thus the traffic jam. In project management, a project, also it is said, there's a famous quote that projects don't fail overnight. Those little details, little errors stack up day by day, and then you have budget overdue 3 times. So it's, I think, easy to talk about mindfulness in areas where we have project failures. And I think in aviation, there were a lot. And if you examine what went wrong, I examined what went wrong in some of famous plane crashes, rocket explosions, some of the most idiotic reasons, and that could have been easily avoided.
So do you honk when someone's not?
I do not honk. I'm the most, I'm pretty sure the calmest person in the room and on the streets.
Okay, cool as ice.
Yeah.
All right.
Same to me. It's harder for me to make myself shout at someone. That's an extreme situation, and I need to prepare myself to do that. But answering the question, actually, I remembered one of the exercises I do once a quarter, and it's a huge thank you to the coach I worked with a couple of years ago. It's called Wheel of Life. It's open in the internet, just Google it. Basically, you evaluate yourself, how happy are you with a certain aspect of your life. It's career, health, family, friends, romantic relationship, and something else fun probably. And you need to rate them on a scale from 1 to 10. Ideally, you should color code that just to see what are the trend lines. And then when you see that something is below your expectations, you just put efforts in it and plan something. So if I color fun as something that is below my expectations, I actually call my friends and say, hey, I miss you. Let's have a dinner. Let's go somewhere. Let's book a ticket. We need to have some fun.
Yeah.
And this is your balancing. Because if you're not happy in one part of your life, it will impact the rest of your life. And keeping the balance is...
So you keep yourself calm and you're taking care of all the important areas in your life.
I don't really focus on keeping myself calm. I'm mostly focused on keeping myself happy as much as I can. And then I try to balance all the aspects of life. Of course, it's not 100% doable sometimes, and there are codependency. But leaning towards that is a huge step itself. And I offered it quite a lot to the people I work with, I'm sure. I hope they use that as well, because to me, it solved a lot of the problems. Because sometimes you feel, it could be better, I'm losing something, there's missed opportunity feeling, I could be a better person, better manager, something about that. But when you look on a scale and when you focus on something, you actually think, well, it's not that bad. This is the problem in a different area, and you focus on that and you solve it.
I think there's a famous saying, right, that life is a tragedy when looked up close. It's a comedy when looked at from far away. And I think it generally relates to our lives, our jobs, the issues that we're having, projects.
Oh, yeah.
Probably absolutely anything could fall into that definition. So I do try and practice looking from afar to understand the bigger picture and actually to then understand how you can fix the problem in the context of bigger things.
And it's the same that Rokas just shared. It's using the data for decision making, right? When you need to negotiate a stakeholder, when you need to negotiate a project change, you better come prepared with the data. And it's applicable on personal level as well.
Absolutely.
Self-reflection with numbers, it's usually that solves the problem.
Just realize that mindfulness practices, even you ask me if I honk, I don't, but it very much depends on expectations. In project management, very much also. What were the expectations when I just got out of home to go to the airport? Did I?
It's definitely about managing those expectations,
Yeah.
for sure. You're
And
right.
if you're mismanaging that, well, that's step one to having problems.
Yeah. So Diana, same question, passing on to you. How do you help yourself? How do you keep that mindfulness?
I believe that all of us have like a very safe place where you can talk about your, I don't know, mental things, about your life things or work things. And for me, the best way to tackle those obstacles is like to hang them in my head. Then I don't know, meet like a friend or I don't know, parents or something, and just let yourself to talk what happened. Sometimes you want to get some feedback or reflections on what you felt or something like that. But sometimes it's just like you are talking and someone listening and no comments there needed. So probably the best way for me to tackle things is like talking and sometimes listening for feedback.
Okay. So actually mindfulness for me came up as a topic probably during COVID. And I had an experience where after COVID, half of the team left because actually they were burned out. And because we were one of the companies in the industry that became a lot more busier. We had a lot more projects going on. and we didn't get enough support from leadership, and I was still a junior project manager, and I didn't really know that much about myself and my reactions and my emotional states and how do I stay centered, stay on the ground, and have the ability to lead others and help them throughout that difficult time. So burnout is probably one of the biggest things that we can prevent while being mindful. When it comes to the topic of burnout in your team, how do you approach that as a topic with them? If people you see that are struggling in terms of their tasks, but you can see that something could be happening in other areas of their life, not necessarily with work, because burnout comes from a combination of different things and lack of attention to others. So what do you guys try and do or not do, or you would want to do? Because as we all discussed, this is a pretty new thing that we're all trying to do. We're trying to implement that in bigger awareness of what we're doing, because before we probably just did it. And now we're aware, we're trying to be more aware. So I'll start from you, Diana.
Actually, I had a burnout a few years ago, and it was like a very not good thing, and I do not want to try it again because I had like no opportunity to walk. I was just lying on bed 7 days and then 3 weeks of rehabilitation. So probably the main problem that time was that I didn't have priorities. I wanted to be everywhere, to do anything, to learn a lot, to do a lot, to meet a lot of new people. And now when I see that my team, for example, has a lot of tasks, the main thing is to sit down and say the real priorities, not that like you have like a lot of tasks on your Jira, ClickUp, whatever, and you have like a lot of flags, urgent, higher, and so on. You're trying to say that it's not the thing that you need to do it as fast as possible, but it means that it can add a lot of value to the company, but you need to do it qualitatively, not quantitatively during the time. So setting priorities and just listening and trying to like check health where the person mentally is, probably the main things from my personal experience.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah. All right. Rokas, I know you wanted to go first. I didn't see that
No,
hand.
that's okay. Thank you very much. Putting on top of what Diana said, I think this is no different than the question of how do we handle daily stress. And there are multiple answers to that. There are, I think, already answered, already efficient, tested. It could be sports, it could be music, it can be sleep, it could be personal connections and conversations. Pick one. Pick one. To me, this is very similar to handling stress. And I would also argue that some people handle it better than others, or so it seems. If not, well, see a psychiatrist.
Well, it's okay to ask for help. I think that's definitely.
You're harsh. See a psychiatrist. I would be scared in my one-to-one. You're not handling stress well. See a psychiatrist. That sounds scary.
All right, so Anna.
We
Seeing a
actually
psychiatrist
use a
is
lot.
scary.
For me, the most important part is to notice the symptoms of burnout as early as possible.
Don't deny them to yourself. Don't lie. Don't lie to yourself.
Okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Can you do this?
Okay.
Yes, I can.
So yeah, so then on multiple levels. If we're talking about the cross-team level, we usually try to, and I'm very grateful for the company for acting like that, is if you have a focused delivery of increment or initiative, after that we will plan in the roadmap some quiet support sprints, so people could let it go, do something, and then return to the fast-pacing world. And this is one part of the story, to keep a rhythm with the breaks in between, not constantly running towards next goal and the next goal and the next goal. On an individual level, I'm a data-driven manager. I love metrics. I collect them and I use them. So I actually pay attention on how the tickets are being assigned during the sprint. Because sometimes there's a tendency then one person who cares the most, he will be assigned to 50% of tickets, which is not fair. And it's a signal that something is going wrong. And it's time to ask a question: what is happening? What is happening in the office? What is happening outside of it? Do you need help? And the third is being attentive and care about people and asking during the personal meetings about personal stuff. In my previous company, we had a template to run one-to-one meetings. Questionable choice, but if you don't have anything else, use at least the template. Don't transform it into just chat. And there was a combination of questions that you can ask a person with a request to rate it, like how happy are you? How do you like your project? Rate from 1 to 5. And based on that, how overloaded are you? You can already see the patterns. If you constantly are telling you, I'm not happy with my project, I'm overloaded, you need to act and you need to balance that. And that's communication that a manager should do. And if you do that, you probably will prevent the majority of cases. But if it happens, and you still need to provide support and care, maybe offer a sabbatical, but it's company culture, so it's not for everyone.
Well, I thank you so much for your valuable perspectives and your experiences and the examples that you guys have given. It's been a conversation that I wanted to have for quite some time, because I think as we sort of grow in these roles and the companies are changing and the society's changing, we gotta keep up with that, but we also need to be able to navigate the world where it's so fast-paced. We have so many different things going on. It's not just work, it's not just life. There's always a lot. There's a curveball coming from the sides, and we gotta be able to deal with that. And as we know how to deal with ourselves, we can help others to do that as well. And I think this is the core of mindfulness, right? It's not just telling people what they need to do and what tools and techniques they need to use, but give them the opportunity to decline, give them the chance to come and ask you for help, and just provide the tools. Just give them that. Just tell them your personal experiences, show them, share. And it really just takes on. And I think other people do that. They do take that on from you as project managers, and you're creating the impact and changing the organization bit by bit from your individual teams. So definitely a very good conversation. I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you back. It was really cool.
It's a wrap.
You can clap for yourself.